There's this recurring theme we see in this crisis in the church in 2025 and even before then. And it's this that the advocates for the ordination of women to the diaconate and the priesthood will take any opportunity, typically done in the name of ecumenical dialogue, to invite women to the altar to help celebrate the Mass. This, of course, is invalid. The people they are inviting are typically Anglican bishopettes or priestesses who have obviously invalid holy orders. They could no more offer the holy sacrifice of the Mass than I could, because they're not priests. They metaphysically cannot possibly be priests. And this is more than just the question of Anglican holy orders and their validity. Leo XIII, the Pope of happy memory from the late 19th century, infallibly declared that their holy orders are null and void, which caused many Anglican bishops and priests to quietly seek valid ordination from otherwise schismatic Catholic organizations in the 19th century and on through today. They had valid holy orders themselves, but were not in communion with Rome. And the Anglican priests and bishops would often seek this ordination out. And that complicated matters. But when we're talking about a bishopette, a priestess, a deaconess, they cannot possibly be ordained, according to the laws of the church. These bishops in the Catholic Church who do this, who invite such figures to concelebrate the Mass with them as part of typically a chrism Mass, or for a saint that the Anglicans are very keen on that the Catholic Church observes, or other such events, they will invite them as a ecumenical outreach. There has been a concerted effort behind the scenes between Rome and Canterbury to essentially bring elements of the Anglican Church back into communion with the Catholic Church. An effort that should be lauded, to be sure, if it's done honestly, meaning that the bishops or the cardinals or whoever it is on behalf of the Vatican are trying to correct theological errors and misconceptions of theology, to invite the Anglican Church to come back into communion with Rome, to surrender on the issues of heresy that they have embraced, and to actually not only submit to the authority of the pontiff, but to actually accept the Catholic faith and to become Catholic again. That's to be lauded. But this is not that. There have been instead attempts to bring them back in to the church into communion with the Pope without settling the theological issues. This is synodality. This is journeying together. This is universal human fraternity. This is the false gospel of the world. We had an event like this in El Salvador, where for the feast of the recently canonized Saint Oscar Romero, who was an El Salvadoran bishop, who was an outspoken critic of both liberation theology and an outspoken critic of the state the liberation theology adherents were in literal open resistance to, and I've been in the violent sense of the word. He was a critic of both sides. And there are some who will say that, well, he was really sympathetic to the liberation theology side. There are critics of his who will say he was sympathetic to the other side. If you ever want a really in-depth look at him, I suppose I can do that for you. But in general, that's not the point here. The Anglicans really love that saint. They do, because the Anglican Church has fallen off into the progressivism replacing Catholicism side of things, and they at least like the very progressive presentation of Oscar Romero. I will say one thing in defense of him. The state removed Oscar Romero from the equation while he was in the middle of the holy sacrifice of the Mass, in the midst of the consecration of the Eucharist. So you can make a good case that he was ended in odium fidei, which means in hatred of the faith. Usually fast tracks you to canonization. Francis canonized him. The Anglicans love them some Oscar Romero, and there was a Mass celebrating the anniversary of his feast for his feast day. His feast day is the day that he ceased to be in this mortal coil. And they offered this, and they invited a bishopette of the Anglican Church to celebrate this. And the actual church in El Salvador actually had to step in and say this isn't actually valid. Pretty bad when the bishops have to correct their brother bishops. So let's start here with Info Vaticana, where we go to this headline. The Salvadoran Nunciature issues a statement regarding the presence of an Anglican bishop at the Mass marking the 45th anniversary of the martyrdom of Bishop Oscar Romero. And there's the bishopette, the bishopess, if you prefer, flanked by Catholic bishops at this event. Amazing. This is a great example of the crisis in the church in one picture. Her stole is, by the way, incredible, pictures of birds and flowers on it, whereas at least these Catholic figures, the images they have on theirs are of the Eucharist. It's a picture speaking 1,000 words here. Invalid. Now, the Mass was valid. What she was doing was committing sacrilege. What she was doing was blasphemous, essentially. She was violating church law and every single thing, and it was indecent. And the papal nunciature had to step in. So here are the details. From the article, quote, yesterday, March 24th, a Mass was celebrated in memory of the 45th anniversary of the martyrdom of Archbishop Oscar Arnulfo Romero y Galdames. He was ended during Mass on March 24th, 1980, and declared a saint by Pope Francis on October 14th, 2018. On the occasion of this anniversary, a group of faithful gathered in the chapel of La Divina Providencia Hospital, where the then Archbishop of San Salvador was ended. The Mass was celebrated by Oswaldo Estefanio Escobar Aguilar, Bishop of Chalatenango, and concelebrated by several priests. The presence of activist, quote, Bishop Naftalio Ruiz of the Old Catholic Church and a, quote, female bishop belonging to the Anglican Episcopal Church of El Salvador is noteworthy. Some faithful have reported that this is the third consecutive year that the Anglican representatives have concelebrated this Mass. The Anglican, quote, female bishop participated in the entrance procession, sharing the homily and occupying a position of authority at the altar until communion. End quote. And now the Diocese of El Salvador issued a response, and I did use X's AI to translate it because they posted it as a PDF file, which means I can't actually translate it myself. So I used X to do this, and here is from their AI, which is called Grok, the translation. And you can see here, I just asked it to please translate the contents of this image from English or into English from the original Spanish, and there's the document. And here's the translation. Press release. Regarding the celebration that took place this morning on the occasion of the 45th anniversary of the martyrdom of St. Oscar Arnulfo Romero at the chapel, the Hospital of Divine Providence, the following is recalled. The ecumenical celebration shared with members of non-Catholic churches foresee only the liturgy of the word and the commentary of the Mass, together with the prayers of the faithful and the prayer that our Lord taught us, the Our Father. Furthermore, according to liturgical norms, the altar must be reserved solely for the Eucharistic celebration. What happened this morning in the chapel of the hospital should not have taken place because it is prohibited by ecclesiastical law. Given in San Salvador, March 24th, 2025. That's a very mild response, I think, because she can't concelebrate the Mass. She can't confect the Eucharist. She received the Mass, or received the Eucharist invalidly. And this goes to a problem. See, the Catholic Church, since the founding of the World Council of Churches, which we don't know what that is, it's essentially an ecumenical group of Protestant of churches who try to come together for some common basic values of Christianity. And they have, since like the late 19th century, invited the Catholic Church into the organization. The Catholic Church continues to say no. Even today, it says no. I expect to see that ended fairly soon because the Vatican, under the synodalists, those who are trying to bring about this universal human fraternity of the new synodal church and its new religion that goes with it, preach universal human fraternity. You can't have universal human fraternity if you don't get along well with the World Council of Churches. And the Anglican Church is pretty powerful in that organization. But what they're doing is, this is ecumenical dialogue. Put it mildly. This is all part of sacrificing the truth to the altar of being nice to each other. And the consequence of that being sacrilegious communion, sacrilegious offering, concelebration of the Mass by those who don't have the faculties to do it. Note, I'm not even saying anything about the old Catholics there. At least their priests and bishops, if they are men, have valid holy orders. But here you have somebody who denies basic reality of the sacraments, who denies the actual historic authority of the papacy, concelebrating the Mass with a Catholic bishop. Because of politics. Go again, read up what they say about St. Oscar Romero. Let me know what you think of this in the comments, please. Hey, like and subscribe if you haven't. It certainly helps. So does sharing this on social media. That helps a lot too. And if you've ever thought about supporting the work of Return to Tradition through Patreon, Subscribestar, the join button, please do so. It's in the description box below. The options are there as asked for by viewers like you. Your support does help keep these daily messages coming. And as always, pray for the church. I'm Anthony Stine. Ave Maria.